So there's more bad news for President Trump's signature accomplishment, that is the giant tax cuts on corporations and the wealthy. Now, according to a new survey, the Trump's $1.5 trillion tax cut package has apparently had no impact on both investment or hiring. Now, this is done by the National Association of Business Economics Quarterly Business Conditions poll that was published on Monday, found that while some companies did report some accelerating investment because of lower corporate taxes, a vast majority of them said, no, they have not increased hiring or investment. So, you know how much of how many companies said they had no plans to change because of the corporate tax cuts? 84%. 84% of companies surveyed and said, yeah, we're not going to do anything. No, we're not going to increase investment. You know what we're going to do with our tax cuts? We're actually going to go and use it for stock buybacks and executive compensation. Of course, because we don't actually need to invest anymore because we don't have that demand. Now, what's funny is that, of course, the administration, when they were trying to sell this to the American people, which, by the way, they did so very poorly because polling at this actually has an incredibly unpopular policy among most American respondents. Now, they said, though, oh, no, if we cut taxes for corporations and the rich, and this is the whole lie about trickle-down, not just this specific tax policy that was enacted by Trump, but also the entire purpose of trickle-down, right? Oh, if we cut corporations and their taxes and cut taxes for the rich, then they're going to massively invest and then create lots and lots of jobs. Well, once again, we have an example of that not working. In fact, as I said before, NABE President Kevin Swift said a large majority of respondents, 84%, indicate that 1 year after its passage, the corporate tax reform has not caused their firms to change hiring or investment plans. He said the lower tax rates, however, did have an impact in the goods-producing sector, with 50% of respondents from that sector reporting increased investments at their companies, and 20% saying they redirected hiring and investments to the United States from abroad. So, now that might sound like a lot. Oh my God, 50% of goods producing, like manufacturing, for example, actually have done some more investment. Okay. Now, unfortunately, that seems to be barely a change overall, because these tax cuts have cost at least $1.5 trillion in revenue. So that's no longer being collected by the government. That means that we can't do things like fixing Flint's water. That means we can't do things like repairing our broken infrastructure or investing in the next group, of Americans. For example, doing something about college debt or doing something about healthcare. Can't do that because, look at that. We lost $1.5 trillion. At least that's what most mainstream economists would actually say. But it gets worse, right? Now, the survey suggested a slowdown in business spending. In fact, the survey's measure of capital spending fell in January to its lowest level since July of 2017. Now, that's just investment, right? What about jobs? According to the survey, employment growth improved modestly in the fourth quarter of 2018 compared to the third quarter. Just over one-third of respondents reported rising employment at their firms over the past 3 months. Now, basically what this is very modest increases in employment. Basically following the trend that we've been following since 2016 and before. Jobs rise at a modest pace, but we're not having a massive surge of employment. It's not like we're sitting on massive unemployment either, but basically we've been following the trend. And so these tax cuts have had very little effect on hiring trends. So what we've seen more often than not is not an investment in their company, an investment in jobs, or an investment in their wages, raising those wages. No, we've seen wages that are continuing to basically be flat. No hugely significant increase in wages, except for if you have governments and cities that are saying, no, we're going to go to a $15 minimum wage. We're going to go to a living wage. Well, okay, we've seen that, but that's not spurred by the tax cuts. That was actually spurred by protests and people that were fighting for fairer wages. It has nothing to do with Trump's tax cuts. And so the reason that these didn't have an impact is because, look, there are two truths, right? Higher taxes on the rich don't stop investment or hiring, right? And lower taxes on the rich don't encourage investment and hiring as well. No business owner will look at their tax bill and make a decision based on, to hire people based on that. They look at it as, do we need more people to help us get our product? Now, of course, there are businesses that sometimes want to increase their profit margin, and they will look at employees to see, okay, who do I get rid of so I can make more profit? It's not based necessarily on your tax rates. Now, I'm not saying tax rates don't matter, of course, especially when it comes to a small business, right? But it's not the sole reason they invest, hire, or fire. If it were true, then every time we cut taxes, we would see a massive job and investment boom. But it doesn't happen. Didn't happen under Bush, won't happen under Trump. And it's because the whole premise is flawed. Trickle-down economics does not work. You have to have policies that actually do work for regular people. For example, marginal tax rates of over 70%. In fact, look, we've had marginal tax rates in the rich of up to 90%. And guess what? It was during large economic booms. Some of the largest, best times for a middle class, where we had the largest middle class, which unfortunately did not include people who are black or Hispanic, but mostly white. And I understand that there was huge problems with racial inequality, same kind of inequality that we have today, especially on the economic front. But back then, you still had a very large, robust middle class, which we don't have today. And you still had tax rates. I believe it was over $2 million. You had a 90% rate. Why can't we get back to that? Well, we could get back to that, and could get back to those better economic times, although we can include everybody this time, if we actually adopt these policies that had actually worked. And that includes higher taxes on the rich and corporations. So we know it works. We know it doesn't work. And once again, we have an example of what doesn't work and why. Trickle-down economics. And we know that it's not an effective means of creating economic growth and good jobs and good wages, but it does have the effect of inflating the stock market by doing stock buybacks. Executive compensation continues to increase. Wages are still flat. The income inequality gap continues to grow, while the cost of being alive, buying homes, student loans, all that stuff continues to increase. So, knowing what we know now, we need to elect politicians that are willing to defy the political donors, right, who are funded by these wealthy corporations and billionaires, so that they can get together and they can pass legislation that will fairly tax the rich, so we can actually make America great. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.